Load up all real quick, everyone. Okay, let's put the book on real quick.
Quiet and calm, but she tossed her braid over her shoulder and gripped the end in her fist, the way she did when angry or uneasy. Egwene did not think she was uneasy. Joya did not seem to make Nynaeve's skin crawl as she did Egwene's. I have repented my sins, Joya said smoothly. The dragon is reborn and he holds Kalandor. The prophecies are fulfilled. The Dark One must fail. I can see that now. My repentance is real.
Right back.
So long in the shadow that she cannot come again to the light. Nynaeve's face had grown darker by the words. Egwene was sure she was furious enough to channel now, but if she did, it would probably be to strangle Joya. Egwene did not believe Joya's repentance any more than Nynaeve, of course, but the woman's information might be real. Joya was quite capable of a cold decision to go over to what she believed would be the winning side, or she might only be buying time, buying in hope of rescue. Lies should not have been possible for an Aes Sedai, even one who had lost all right to the name. Not outright lies. The very first of the 3 oaths, taken with the oath rod in hand, should have seen to that. But whatever oaths to the Dark One were sworn on joining the Black Ajah, they seemed to sever all 3 oaths. Well, the Amyrlin had sent them out to hunt the Black Ajah, to hunt Liandrin and the other 12 who had done murder and fled the tower, and all they had to go on now was what these 2 could or would tell them. Give us your tale again, Egwene commanded. Use different words this time. I am tired of listening to memorized stories. If she was lying, there was more chance she would trip herself up telling it differently. We will hear you out. That was for Nynaeve's benefit. She gave a loud sniff, then a curt nod. Joya shrugged. As you wish. Let me see. Different words. The false dragon, Masrim Time, who was captured in Saldaea, can channel with incredible strength, perhaps as much as Randall Thor, or nearly so if the reports can be believed. Before he can be brought to Tar Valon and gentled, Liandrin means to break him free. He will be proclaimed as the Dragon Reborn, his name given as Randall Thor, and then he will be sent to destruction on such a scale as the world has not seen since the War of the 100 Years. That is impossible, Nynaeve broke in. The pattern will not accept a false dragon, not now that Rand has proclaimed himself. Egwene sighed. They had this out before, but Nynaeve always argued the point. She was not sure Nynaeve really believed that Rand was the Dragon Reborn, no matter what she said, no matter the prophecies and Kalandor and the fall of the stone. Nynaeve was just enough older than he to have looked after him when he was a child, just as she had after Egwene. He was an Emond's Fielder, and Nynaeve still saw her first duty as protecting the people of Emond's Field. Is that what Moiraine told you? Joya asked with a touch of contempt. Moiraine has spent little time in the tower since she was raised, and not much more with her sisters anywhere. I suppose she knows the workings of village life, perhaps even something of the politics between nations, but she does claim certainty about matters learned only through study and discussion with those who know. Still, she might be correct. Nasrem Tide might well find it impossible to proclaim himself, but if others do it for him, is there a difference that matters? Egwene wished Moiraine would come back. The woman would not speak so confidently if Moiraine were there. Joya knew very well that Nynaeve were only accepted. It made a difference. Go on, Egwene said, almost as harshly as Nynaeve. And remember, different words. Of course, Joya replied, as though responding to a gracious invitation, but her eyes glittered like chips of black glass. You can see the obvious result. Randall Thor will be blamed for the depredations of Randall Thor. Even proof that they are not the same man may well be dismissed. After all, who can say what tricks the Dragon Reborn can play? Perhaps put himself in two places at once. Even the sort who have always rallied to a false dragon will hesitate in the face of the indiscriminate slaughter and worse laid at his feet. Those who do not shrink at such butchery will seek out the Randall Thor who seems to revel in blood. The nations will unite as they did in the Aiel War. She gave Avienda an apologetic smile, incongruous beneath those merciless eyes, but no doubt much more quickly. Even the Dragon Reborn cannot stand against that, not forever. He will be crushed before the last battle even begins, by the very ones he was meant to save. The Dark One will break free, the day of Tarmon Gaiden will come, and the Shadow will cover the earth and remake the pattern for all time. That is Leandrin's plan. There was not a hint of satisfaction in her voice.
Hey, John McDonald, how you doing, bro?
It was a plausible story.
Hell yeah.
More plausible than Aniko's
I had to
few
borrow
eavesdropping
my
sentences.
buddy's pipe because the one I had ended up breaking on me. So,
Because she wanted to.
but it's a nice bowl.
A vague threat in Tanchico.
And some of this topped
Fully fledged plan to turn
with some
everyone
wax.
against Rand. No, she thought. Joya is lying. I am sure she is. Yet they could not afford to ignore either story. But
I
they
hope
could
you're
not
doing well,
chase
though,
after
John
both,
McDonald.
not with any hope of success. The door banged
Yeah,
and
and it's the
thrown in, with Elaine following.
it's the only
Daughter Air was
smoking device that I had with me.
lost in dark thoughts. But Moiraine,
Luckily, my buddy had a nice little piece. But yeah, I'm out of a smoking device now.
Doorways.
At least my own personal one.
Moiraine told the air in a low, tight voice, is a mule-headed, stone-willed fool of a man.
And I gotta try to get another one.
Elaine lifted her chin angrily. Her childhood nurse, Libby, used to say you could weave silk from pig bristles before you could make a man anything but a man. But that was no excuse for Rand. We breed them that way in the Two Rivers. Nynaeve was suddenly all half-suppressed smiles and satisfaction. She seldom hid her dislike of the Aes Sedai half as well as she thought she did. Two Rivers women never had any trouble with them. From the startled look Egwene gave her, that was a lie big enough to warrant having her mouth washed out. Moiraine's brows drew down as if she were about to reply to Nynaeve in harder kind. Elaine stirred, but she could not find
What even
anything to
sucked
say
too was
argument. Rand kept
I was already bought that pipe
he had no right.
before I started
What
my
right did she have?
journey this way.
Egwene spoke instead.
I
What
bought
did
it
you do,
in
Moiraine? The Aes Sedai's eyes swung
Casper,
to a flame,
Wyoming.
a stare so hard that the younger woman stepped back and snapped her fan open,
Because
nervously
we're
fluttering in
me,
Rand's
my
face.
older brother, my
When
mom
Moraine's
were
gaze settled on
in
Joya
Casper,
and
Wyoming,
the one watching her
for my
warily,
cousin's
the other round and
wedding.
unaware of anything but the far wall.
And I got it up
Elaine
there
gave a small start at realizing Joya was
just
not
so I
found.
could have it for
Hastily, she checked the
when I
shield
got here,
blocking
so I
the
could have
woman's
something to
way
smoke
the
out of.
source. She hoped none of the others had noticed
Then it
her
goes
shield.
and breaks.
Joya
Earlier
frightened
today
him to
too.
death, but Egwene and Nynaeve were no more scared of the woman than
I was just
Moiraine
tapping the
was.
bowl out like that in my
Sometimes
hand,
it's
and
difficult
yeah,
being as brave as the daughter heir of
the
Andor
whole
should
bowl
be.
part of it
She
broke
often
off,
found
and
herself
yeah,
wishing she could manage as well as those two.
it was a sad day.
The guards, Moiraine muttered as if to herself. I saw them in the corridor still and never thought. She smoothed her dress, composing herself with an obvious effort. Elaine did not believe she had ever seen Moiraine so out of herself as tonight. But then the Aes Sedai had cause. No more than I do. Or do I? She found herself trying not to meet Egwene's eyes. Had it been Egwene or Nynaeve or Elaine who was off balance, Joya would surely have said something, subtle and of two meanings, calculated to upset them a little more, if they had been alone at least. With Moiraine she only watched uneasily, silently. Moiraine walked the
Pay
length
taps
of
to
the
honor
table,
it.
her calm restored. Joya was nearly
Right
an
now,
taller, but had she also been dressed in silks,
the pipe
there
and
would have
its
been no
pieces
doubt
are in my
that she
buddy's
was in
garage.
command of the situation. Joya did not quite draw back, but her hands tightened on her skirts for a moment before she could master them. I have made arrangements.
That's the first pipe that's
Moiraine
broken
said
on me
quietly.
in a
In
good
4
minute.
days you will be taken upriver by ship to Tar Valon and the tower. There they are not so gentle as we have been. If you
I
have
thought it'd
not
be
found
better
the
quality
truth
just
so far,
because
find it
how
before
thick
you
it
reach
was.
South Harbor, or you will assuredly
But
go
it was
to
almost like a
thousands of
Sherlock.
others.
Well, you guys seen it that's
I will not
been
speak
on
to
here
you
the past
again
couple of
unless you send
days.
word that you have something
It broke
new to
right
tell
in
me.
the little
And I do
pinch
not
here
want to hear a
bent
word
where
from you.
it came
No,
down like
not a
that.
word, unless it is new. Believe me,
So I
you
guess
will
that's
see
where it was the
Elaine in
thinnest
Tar
at,
Valon.
and it, yeah,
Avienda,
it just
you tell the
fucking
captain to bring me
broke
2 of
with
his men.
no problem.
Elaine blinked as the
Hey,
actual
AP,
woman
how you
unfolded
doing, bro?
herself and vanished
Hope you and the
through the
family
door.
are doing good.
Sometimes Avienda could be so still, she seemed not to be there.
Yeah, I thought I'd come on a little bit earlier.
Speak, but Moiraine stared up at her, and finally the dark friend turned her eyes away. They glittered like a raven's, full of black murder, but she held her tongue. To Elaine's eyes, a golden-white glow suddenly surrounded Moiraine. The glow of a woman
Oh
embracing
shit, painting again, huh?
Only another
Hopefully it's for the last
channel
time,
could
brother.
have seen it.
What the heck happened? Give me 1 second.
Golden white glow suddenly surrounded Moiraine. The glow of a woman embracing Saidar. Only another woman trained to channel could have seen it. The flows holding Amiko unraveled
I
more
hope all y'all are
quickly than
doing good this
Elaine
evening.
managed. She
Yeah,
was
AP, I'm
stronger than Moiraine, potentially
smoking out
at
of a
least.
different
In the tower,
different
the
handpiece.
competition had been almost
I had to
complete
borrow one
without
from
her
my
potential.
my
And
buddy
Egwene
because
was
mine
had
broke
the Nynaeve's.
earlier today.
Nynaeve was the strongest of them all when she could manage to channel. But Moiraine had the experience. What they were still learning to do, Moiraine could do half asleep. Yet there were some things Elaine could do, and the other two, that the Aes Sedai could not. It was a small
Oh yeah,
satisfaction
that would suck,
in the face of
AP.
how easily Moiraine cowed Joya.
That would
Free,
definitely suck.
able to hear, Amiko turned and became aware of Moiraine for the first time. With a squeak, she dropped a curtsy as deep as any new novice. Joya was glaring at the door, avoiding anyone's gaze. Nynaeve,
Yeah,
arms crossed and
definitely
knuckles
good
tightly
because
gripping her braid, was giving Moiraine a stare
we're
almost as
we're not allowed to
pleasant as
smoke
Joya's.
joints in the
Elaine bared her
house
skirt and glowered at Joya. Elaine frowned, wishing she were as brave as
just
Egwene,
because
wishing she did not feel she was betraying her.
I'm in the basement and my
Into
buddy,
that,
him and his
Captain
wife's room
Blister
are
wore
upstairs.
defenders in black and gold on his heels.
But either way, we
Avienda
smoke a
was
joint.
not
I guess it gets
It
too
seemed
smoky
she had
down
taken her opportunity
below,
to
and that's
escape
where their
violence.
kid is. So
The grizzled officer,
bowls were allowed to
short
smoke
white
inside,
hands
but
on his
joints we got to
red
smoke
helmet,
outside.
shied as his eyes met Joya's,
So
though
definitely
she
good
did
he
not
had that
seem to
because
see. His gaze
the way I
swept
smoke at
over
night,
her
I'd be
uncertainly. The
I'd be
mood
SOL
was
because
trouble, and a wise man did not want any
it is
part of
cold
trouble
out
among
there.
this sort of woman. The two soldiers
And it was
clutched
a
their
nice
tall
day, but
spears
still a
to
little
their
chilly.
sides, almost as
At
if
nighttime,
they might have to defend
it's
themselves.
really chilly at nighttime
Perhaps
here.
they did fear it. You will take these two back to their cells, Moiraine told the officer curtly.
I don't care what anyone in
Forget your
the
instructions.
UP
I
says.
hope no
This is
mistakes.
not summer. At least it don't feel like summer.
No mistakes.
Cause I bought me a couple pairs of pants, but the rest of my clothes are pretty much shorts.
Watching her anxiously to see if that would do. When she only continued to look at him, waiting,
Dang
he
it.
gave an audible sigh of relief. The prisoners are to talk to no one except myself, not even each other. 20 men in the guard room and 2 outside each cell at all times. 4 at the cell
60s
door
there.
must
Let's see
be
what it
opened
was
for any reason.
here today.
I myself will watch their food prepared and take it to them. All as you have commanded, my lady.
Right
A
now
hasty
it's
question tinged his voice.
54
100
right
rumors
now.
floated through the stone concerning the prisoners.
But it was nice and sunny. It's just that
Guarded so heavily.
that little breeze you get up in this area, you definitely feel the chill. What the heck?
100 rumors floated through the stone concerning the prisoners and why 2 women needed to be guarded so heavily. And there were whispered stories about the Aes Sedai.
Yeah,
each darker than
probably
the last. Very good.
in the 90s,
Take them. It was not
hundreds.
clear who was more eager to leave the room, the prisoners or the guards. Even Joya stepped quickly, as if she could not bear keeping silent near Moiraine for another moment. Elaine was certain she had kept her face calm
Give me 1
since
second.
entering the room, but Elaine came to her, put an arm around her. What is the matter, Elaine? You look about to cry. The concern in her voice made Elaine feel like bursting into tears. Light, she thought. I will not be that silly. I will not. A weeping woman is a bucket with no bottom. Lenny had been full of sayings like that. 3 times, Nynaeve burst out at Moiraine. Only 3. You have consented to help us question them. This time you vanished before we begin, and now you calmly announce you are sending them off to Tar Valon. If you will not help, at least do not interfere. Do not presume on the Arden's authority too far.
Oh, shit.
She may have sent you to chase Liandrin, but you are still only accepted and woefully ignorant whatever letters you carry. Or did you mean to keep questioning them forever before
What's the
reaching
71 there?
You 2 Rivers people seem to work at avoiding decisions that must be made. Nynaeve opened and
Let's see what it was
eyes
today
bulging, as if wondering
at
which
home.
accusation to answer first. But Moiraine turned to Egwene
Yeah.
and Elaine.
I guess it's supposed to be
How you can carry out
pretty
the
cool
Arden's
weather.
orders if you think every land has the customs you were born to, I do not know. And I do not know why you are so upset. Do not let
So I guess it wouldn't be too warm over there yet.
What do you mean? Egwene said. What customs? What are you talking about? Elaine was in Ram's chambers, Elaine said in a small voice before she could stop herself. Her eyes flickered guiltily toward Egwene. Surely she had kept her own feelings hidden. Moiraine gave her a reproachful look and sighed. I would have spared you this if I could, Egwene. If Elaine had not let her disgust with Berelain overcome her sense. The customs of Mayenne are not those either of you were born to. Egwene, I know what you feel for Rand, but you must realize... But you must realize by now that nothing can come of it. He belongs to the pattern and to history. Seemingly ignoring the Aes Sedai, Egwene peered into Elaine's eyes. Elaine wanted to look away and could not. Suddenly, Egwene leaned closer, whispering behind a cupped hand. I love him, like a brother, and you like a sister. I wish you well of him. Elaine's eyes widened, a smile spreading slowly across her face. She answered Egwene's hug with a fierce hug of her own. Thank you, she murmured softly. I love you too, sister. Oh, thank you. She got it wrong, Egwene said half to herself, a delighted grin blooming on her face. Have you ever been in love, Moiraine? What a startling question. Elaine could not imagine the Aes Sedai in love. Moiraine was Blue Ajah, and it was said Blue sisters gave all their passions to causes. The slender woman was not at all taken aback. For a long moment she looked levelly at the pair of them, each with an arm around the other. Finally she said, "I could wager I know the face of the man I will marry better than either of you knows that of your future husband." Egwene gaped in surprise. "Who?" Elaine gasped. The Aes Sedai appeared regretful of having spoken. "Perhaps I only meant we share an ignorance." We share an ignorance. Do not read too much into a few words. She looked at Nynaeve consideringly. "Should I ever choose a man, should, I say, it will not be Lan. That much I will say." That was a sop to Nynaeve, but Nynaeve did not seem to like hearing it. Nynaeve had what Linny would have called a hard patch to hoe, loving not just a warder, but a man who tried to deny returning her love. Fool man that he was, he talked of the war against the shadow he could not stop fighting.
Hell yeah, EP. I definitely appreciate you stopping by. Hope you don't start hurting too bad finishing up, brother.
How Nynaeve put up with it. She was not a very patient woman. "If you are finished chatting about men," Nynaeve said acidly, as though to prove just that, "perhaps we can go back to what is important." Gripping her braid hard, she picked up speed and force as she went along like a water wheel with the gears disengaged. How are we to decide whether Joya is lying or Amiko if you send them away, or whether they both are, or neither? I don't relish dithering here, Moiraine, no matter what you think, but I have walked into too many traps to want to walk into another. And I don't want to run after Jack of the Wisps either. We are the ones the Amyrlins sent after Liandrin and her cronies. Since you don't seem to think they are important enough to spare more than a moment to help us, the least you can do is not crack our ankles with a broom." She seemed about to rip that braid free and try to strangle the Aes Sedai with it, and Moiraine wore a dangerously cool, crystalline calm that suggested she might be ready to teach again the lesson on holding her tongue that she had taught Joya. It was, Elaine decided, time for her to stop moping. She did not know how she had fallen into the role of peacemaker among these women. Sometimes she wanted to take them all by the scruff of the neck and shake them, but her mother always said no good decision was ever made in anger. "You might add to your list of what you want to know," she said. "Why were we summoned to Rand? That is where Kareen took us. He is all right now, of course. Moiraine healed him." She could not repress a shudder, thinking of her brief glimpse inside his chamber, but the diversion worked a charm. "Healed?" Nynaeve gasped. "What happened to him?" "He almost died," the Aes Sedai said, as calmly as if she were saying he had a pot of tea. Elaine felt Egwene tremble as they listened. To Moiraine's dispassionate report, but perhaps some of the trembling was her own. Bubbles of evil pattern, reflections leaping out of mirrors, blood and wounds. Moiraine was sure Paris had experienced something, but escaped unharmed. The woman must have ice instead of blood. No, she was heated enough about Rand's stubbornness, and she wasn't cold when she spoke of marrying, however much she pretended to be. But now she could have been discussing whether a bolt of silk was the right color for a dress. "And these things will keep on?" Egwene said.
Hey, Ro McCoy, how you doing?
"Is there nothing you can do to stop it? Or that Rand
Hope you're doing well.
The small blue stone dangling from Moiraine's hair swung as she shook her head. "Not until he learns to control his abilities. Perhaps not then. I do not know if even he will be strong enough to push the miasma away from himself. At the least, though, he will be better able to defend himself." "Can't you do something to help him?" Nynaeve demanded. You are the one of us who is able to know everything or pretend to. Can't you teach him? Some part of it anyway? And don't quote proverbs about birds teaching fish to fly. You would know better, Moiraine.
Oh, yeah. Definitely
If you had
appreciate it.
taken the advantage of your studies, then you
Always
should have.
appreciate the
You
support.
should know better. You want. You want to know how to use the power, Nynaeve, but you do not care to learn about the power. Saidin is not Saidar. The flows are different. The ways of weaving are different. The bird has a better chance. This time, Egwene took a turn at diffusing tension. What is Rand being stubborn about now? Nynaeve opened her mouth, and she added, He can be stubborn as a stone sometimes. Nynaeve shut her mouth with a snap. They all knew how true that was. Moiraine eyed them, considering. At times, Elaine was not sure how much the Aes Sedai trusted them, or anyone. He must move, the Aes Sedai said at last. Instead, he sits here, and the Tyrants already begin to lose their fear of him.
Oh, yeah. Definitely appreciate it, Real McCoy. I'm glad you keep coming back and showing us support.
He sits here, and the longer he sits doing nothing, the more the Forsaken will see his inaction as a sign of weakness. The pattern moves and flows, only the dead are still. He must act, or he will die. From a crossbow bolt in his back or poison in his food, or the Forsaken banding together to rip his soul from his body. He must act or die. Elaine winced at each danger on her list. That they were real only made it worse. And you know what he must do, don't you? Nynaeve said tightly. You have this action planned. Moiraine nodded. Would you rather he go herring off alone once more? I dare not risk it. This time he might be dead or worse before I find him. That was true enough. Rand hardly knew what he was doing, and Elaine was sure Moiraine had no wish to lose the little guidance she still gave him, the little he allowed her to give. Will you share
Hey,
your
Motivated
plan
Grower.
with
How
us?
you doing, bro?
Demanded. She was certainly not helping soothe the air now.
I hope you're doing good, bro.
Yes, do, Elaine said, surprising herself with the cool echo of Egwene's tone. Confrontation was
How's Snoopy been doing?
avoided. Her mother always said it was better to guide people than try to hammer them into line. If their manner irritated Moiraine, she gave no sign of it. As long as you understand that you must keep it to yourselves. A plan revealed is a plan doomed to fail. Yes, I see you do understand. Understand? Elaine certainly did.
What the hell happened? There we go. About the same.
Understand? Elaine certainly did. The plan was dangerous, and Moiraine was not sure it would work. Samael is in Ilion, the Aes Sedai went on. The Tyrants are always as ripe for war with Ilion as the other way around. They have been killing each other off and on for 1,000 years, and they speak of their chance for it as other men speak of the next feast day. I doubt even knowing of Samael's presence would change that, not with the Dragon Reborn to lead them. Tyr will follow Rand eagerly enough in that enterprise, and if he brings Samael down, he... Light! Nynaeve exclaimed.
You're doing about the same, huh?
Want him to start a
You're not
war,
causing trouble.
You want him to seek out one of the Forsaken. No wonder he is being stubborn. He is not a fool for a man.
So is Dobby teaching Bella how to catch birds?
one in the end, Moiraine said calmly. Do you truly think he can avoid the Forsaken now? As for war, there are wars enough without him, and every one worse than useless. Any war is useless, Elaine began, then faltered as comprehension suddenly filled her. Sadness and regret had to show on her face, too, but certainly comprehension. Her mother had lectured her often on how a nation was led as well as how it was governed. Two very different things.
Description.
Different things, but both necessary. And sometimes things had to be done for both that were worse than unpleasant, although the price of not doing them was worse still. Moiraine gave her a sympathetic look. It is not always pleasant, is it? Your
All
mother
right,
began,
no government
just old
names.
enough to understand, I suppose, teaching you what you will need to rule after her. Moiraine had grown up in the royal palace in Cairhien, not destined to reign, but
What the hell? Should have brought my extra phone. Then I wouldn't be having these problems.
Moiraine had grown up in the royal palace in Cairhien, not destined to reign, but related to the ruling family, and no doubt overhearing the same lectures. Yet sometimes it seems ignorance would be better. To be a
Well, yeah, at this point in time, at least in my brothers right now.
More riddles? Nynaeve said contemptuously. War used to be something I heard about from peddlers, something far away that I didn't really understand. I know what it is now. Men killing men. Men behaving like animals, reduced to animals. Villages burned, farms and fields burned.
I gotta remember to
Disease and death. For the innocent
send Mom
as
and
the guilty.
Glass a message
What
tomorrow.
makes this way of yours better, Moiraine? What makes it cleaner? Elaine, Moiraine said quietly.
Don't forget to send Mom a message tomorrow, most
She did
hated.
not want to be the one to explain this, but she was not sure even her mother, sitting on the lion throne, could have kept silent under Moiraine's compelling, dark-eyed stare. War will come whether Rand begins it or not, she said reluctantly. Egwene stepped back a pace, staring at her in disbelief no sharper than that on Nynaeve's face. The incredulity faded from both women as she continued. The Forsaken will not stand idly and wait. Samael cannot be the only one to have seized the nation's reins, just the lone one we know. They will come after Rand eventually, in their own persons perhaps, but certainly with whatever armies they command.
Something
And the nations that are free of the
good
Forsaken.
will eventually
How
happen.
many will cry glory to the dragon banner and follow him to Tarmon Gaiden? And how many
Even
will
though I have to
convince
go fly
themselves
aside.
the fall of the stone is a lie, and Rand only another false dragon who must be put down? A false dragon perhaps strong enough to threaten them if they do not move against him first. One way or another, war will come. She cut off sharply. There was more to it, but she would not tell them that part. Moiraine was not so reticent. Very good, she said, nodding, yet incomplete. The look she gave Elaine said she knew Elaine had left out what she had on purpose. Hands folded calmly at her waist, she addressed Nynaeve and Egwene. Nothing makes this war better or cleaner, except that it will cement the tyrants to him, and the Illianers following him just as the tyrants do now.
Excuse
How
me,
could
Earl.
they not, once the dragon banner flies over Ilion? Just the news of his victory might decide the wars in Tarabon and Arad Doman in his favor. There are wars ended for you. In one stroke, he will make himself so strong in terms of men and swords that only a coalition of every remaining nation from here to the Blight can defeat him. And with the same blow, he shows the Forsaken that he is not a plump partridge on a limb for the netting. That will make them wary and buy him time to learn to use his strength. He must move first, be the hammer, not the nail. The Aes Sedai grimaced slightly, a hint of earlier anger marring her calm.
I had to look it up,
Must move first.
most hated.
What does he do? He reads. Reads
'Cause it's gonna
himself
be more
into
than
deeper trouble. Nynaeve looked
Should be
shaken,
more than
as if
last
she
time
could
when
see
Robert
all the
got her
battles
for a
and
couple
death.
reasons.
Egwene's dark
This could
eyes
be
were
one
hard
because
and
it's further
horrified
distance
understanding.
and
Their faces made Elaine
it's
shiver.
Memorial Weekend
One
coming
had
up.
watched Rand grow up. The other had grown up with him. And now they saw him starting wars. Not the Dragon Reborn, but Rand al'Thor. Egwene struggled visibly, latching onto the smallest part, the most inconsequential of what Moiraine had said. How can reading put him in trouble? He has decided to find out for himself what the prophecies
But it'd be
say.
under 5.
Moraine's face remained cool and smooth. But
Give me
suddenly
1
she
second,
sounded
everyone. I'll be
almost
right
as
back.
tired as Elaine felt. They may have been proscribed in tears. The chief librarian had 9 different translations in a locked chest. Rand has them all now. I pointed out the verse that applies here, and he quoted it to me from an old Kandori translation. Power of the shadow made human flesh, wakened to turmoil, strife, and ruin. The reborn one, marked and bleeding, dances the sword in dreams and mist, chains the shadow sworn to his will. From the city, lost and forsaken, leads the spears to war. The spears to war once more, breaks the spears and makes them see truth long hidden in the ancient dream. She grimaced. It applies to this as well as it does to anything. Ilian under Samael is surely a forsaken city. Lead the Tyran spears to war, chain Samael, and he has fulfilled the verse, the ancient dream of the Dragon Reborn. But he will not see it. He even has a copy in the old tongue as if he understood 2 words. He runs after shadows, and Samael or Ravin or Lanfear may have him by the throat before I can convince him of his mistake. He is desperate. Nynaeve's gentle tone was not for Moiraine, Elaine was sure, but for Rand. Desperate and trying to find his way. So am I desperate, Moiraine said firmly. I have dedicated my life to finding him, and I will not let him fail if I can prevent it. I am almost desperate enough to... She broke off, pursing her lips. Let it be enough that I will do what I must. But it isn't enough, Egwene said sharply. What is it you'll do? You have other matters to concern you, the Aes Sedai said. The Black Ajah... No! Elaine's voice was knife-edged and commanding, her knuckles a hard white where she gripped her soft blue skirts. You keep too many secrets, Moiraine, but tell us this. What do you mean to do to him? An image flashed in her mind of seizing Moiraine and shaking the truth out of her if need be. Do to him? Nothing. Oh, very well. There is no reason you should not know. You have seen what the Tyrants call the Great Holding. Oddly, for a people that feared the power so, the Tyrants held in the stone a collection of objects connected to the power second only to that in the White Tower. Elaine, for one, thought it was because they had been forced to guard Kalandor so long, whether they wanted or not. Even the sword that is not a sword might seem less than what it was when it was one among many. But the Tyrants had never been able to make themselves display their prizes. The Great Holding was kept in a filthy series of crowded rooms buried even deeper in dungeons. When Elaine had first seen them, the locks on the doors had long since rusted shut, where the doors had not simply collapsed from time. We spent an entire day down there, Nynaeve said, to see if Liandrin and her friends took anything. I don't think they did. Everything was buried in dust and mold.
Thanks, Real McCoy.
10 riverboats to transport all of it to the tower. Perhaps they can make some
Got a
sense of
couple.
it there. I surely could not. The temptation to prod Moiraine was apparently too great to avoid, for she added, You would know all this if you had given us a little more of your time. Moiraine took no notice. She seemed to be looking inward, examining her own thoughts, and she spoke almost to herself. There is one particular ter'angreal in the holding, a single door frame, subtly twisted to the eye. If I cannot make him reach some decision, I may have to step through. The small blue stone on her forehead trembled.
Thanks.
Apparently Apparently, she was not eager to take that step.
8
At the mention of
tattoos.
Terangrial, Egwene instinctively touched the bodice of her dress. She had sewn a small pocket there herself to hide the stone ring it now held. That ring was a Terangrial, powerful in its way, if small, and
No,
Elaine
just
was
small
one of only
ones.
3 women who knew she had it. Moiraine was not one of the 3. They were strange things, Terangrial, fragments of the age of legends like Ungrial and Saangrial, if more numerous. Terangrial used the one
You
power
got a couple
instead of
tattoos too,
magnified.
most hated. Yeah, we only got a couple tattoos.
Each had apparently been made to do one thing and one thing alone, but though some were used now, no one was sure if those uses were anything like what they had been made for. The oath rod, on which a woman took the 3 oaths on being raised Aes Sedai, was a Terangrial that made those oaths a part of her flesh and bone. The last test a novice took on being raised to accept it was inside another Terangrial that ferreted out her
You got a
most
couple just
heartfelt
on one
fears
hand,
and made
most
them
hated.
seem real, or perhaps took her to a place where they were real. Odd things could happen with Terangrial. Aes Sedai had been burned out or killed, or had simply vanished in studying them, and in using them. I saw that doorway, Elaine said, in the last room at the end of the hall. My lamp went out and I fell 3 times before I made it to the door. A slight flush of embarrassment reddened her cheeks. I was afraid to channel in there, even to relight the lamp. Much of it looks rubbish to me. I think the Tyrants simply grabbed anything that anyone hinted might be connected to the power. But I thought if I channeled, I might accidentally empower something that wasn't rubbish, and who knows what it might do. And if you had stumbled in the dark and fallen through the twisted doorway, Moiraine said wryly. That needs no channeling, only to step through. To what purpose? Nynaeve asked. To gain answers. 3 answers, each true, about past, present, or future. Elaine's first thought was for the children's tale, Billy Under the Hill, but only because of the 3 answers. A second thought came on its heels, and not to her alone. She spoke while Nynaeve and Egwene were still opening their mouths. Moiraine, this solves our problem. We can ask whether Joya or Amiko is telling the truth. We can
Hey,
ask where
Southside, how
Leonie
you
and the
doing,
others
brother?
are. The names
Hope you're
of the
doing good.
Maharaja still in the tower. We can ask what this thing is that is
Not doing
dangerous
too
around,
bad.
Egwene put in. And Nynaeve added, why haven't
Just
you told
chilling.
us this
Thought I'd
before?
do a
Why have you let us go on listening to the same tales day
somewhat of
after
an
day?
early
When we
live.
could have settled it all by now. The Aes Sedai winced and threw up her hands. You 3 Russians.
Yep, AAP's definitely a good guy.
Lan and 100 warders would tread warily. Why do you think I have not stepped through?
Oh, yeah,
Days
nah,
ago
it's
I
hot.
should have asked what Rand must
I
do
wish
to
it's hot
survive
over
the
here,
trials.
but
How he can defeat the Forsaken and
it's
the
still
Dark
chilly
Ones.
over here.
How he can learn to control the power and hold on
I have a
to
little
long enough to do what
a
he
little
must.
heater in the spare
Hands
bedroom
on
right now.
hips while it sank in. None of them spoke.
I haven't turned it on yet,
There
but
are rules, she went on.
I probably will be turning it on here soon.
No one may step through more than once. Only once. You may ask 3 questions, but you must ask all 3 and hear the answers before you may leave. Frivolous questions are punished, it seems, but it also seems what may be serious for one can be frivolous coming from another. Most importantly, questions touching the shadow
Things in the
have
50s
dire
right now
consequences.
outside.
If you asked about the Black
They only
Arch,
got up
you might
to
return dead or come out a gibbering
thing was like 70, 71 today.
As for Rand, I am
Oh
not
shit.
certain it is possible
Oh
to
yeah.
ask a question about the Dragon Reborn that does not touch the shadow in some way. You see, sometimes there are reasons.
Yeah,
for
the
caution.
nights over here,
How do you know
they
all
definitely
this?
get a little
Nynaeve
chilly.
demanded. Planting fists on hips, she confronted the Aes Sedai. The High Lords surely never let Aes Sedai study anything in the holding. From the filth down there, none of it has seen
80 over there,
sunlight for
Southsider.
or more. More, I should think.
I like the
Moiraine
cold,
told her calmly.
but sometimes my
No
body
sense they're
don't.
collecting nearly 300 years
when it's
ago,
really cold, my
it was
body's,
just
I'm
before they
definitely in
stopped
pain.
completely that they acquired this ter'angreal. Up until then, it was the possession of the firsts of Mayenne, who used its answers to help keep Mayenne out of Tyr's grasp, and they allowed Aes Sedai to study it, in secret, of course. Mayenne has never dared anger Tyr too openly. If it was so important to Mayenne, Nynaeve said suspiciously, why is it here, in the stone? Because firsts have made bad decisions as well as good in trying to keep Mayenne free of Tyr. 300 years ago, the High Lords were planning to build a fleet to follow Mayenne's ships and find the oilfish shoals. Halvar, the then first, raised the price of Ma'ener lamp oil well above that of oil from Tyr's olives, and to further convince the High Lords that Ma'ene would always put its own interests behind those of Tyr, made them a gift of the ter'angreal. He had already used it.
That,
So
and
there was no further
I have a
need to
metal
think.
plate in my
And
arm,
he
so when
was
that gets
as old
cold,
as Berelain is now, apparently
it
with a
really
long
hurts.
reign ahead of him and many years of needing Tyran goodwill.
I've gotten broken bones here and there.
My mother would
Yeah.
not make such a mistake. Perhaps not, Moiraine said. But then Andor is not a small nation cornered by a much larger and stronger. Halvar was a fool, as it turned out. The High Lords had him assassinated the very next year. But his foolishness does present me with an opportunity, if I need it. A dangerous one, yet better than none. Nynaeve muttered to herself, perhaps disappointed that the Aes Sedai had not tripped herself up. It leaves the rest of us right where we were, Egwene sighed, not knowing who is lying or whether they both are. Question them again if you wish, Moiraine said. You have until they are put on the ship, though I very much doubt either will change her tale now. My advice is to concentrate on Tanchico. If Joya speaks truly, it will take Aes Sedai and warders to guard Mazrim time, not just.
Oh yeah, I feel you on that. That's how mine is too. If I stand up for too long, it hurts a lot. If I move too much or lift shit, it hurts. Yeah, I have a pretty jacked up back.
Pigeon when I first heard Joya's story. In fact, I sent 3 pigeons to make sure one reaches the tower. So kind of you to keep us informed, Elaine murmured coolly. The woman did go her own way. Just because they were only pretending to be full Aes Sedai was no reason for Moiraine to keep them in the dark. The Amyrlin had sent them out to hunt the Black Ajah. Moiraine inclined her head briefly as if accepting the thanks for real. You are welcome. Remember that you are the hounds the Amyrlin set after the Black Ajah. Her slight smile at Elaine's start said she knew exactly what Elaine had been thinking. The decision on where to course must be yours. You have pointed that out to me as well, she added dryly. I trust it will prove an easier
And then
decision
tomorrow is supposed to
and I
be,
trust you will sleep well. What sleep is
let's
left
see,
before daybreak. A good night to you. That woman.
a high
murmured
of
when the door had closed
65
behind
and a
Aes
low
Sedai.
of 39.
Sometimes I could almost strangle
I
her.
have to wear pants tomorrow.
She dropped into one of the chairs at the table and sat frowning at her hands in her lap. Nynaeve gave a grunt that might have been agreement as she went to a narrow table against the wall where silver goblets and spice jars stood next to 2 pitchers. One pitcher full of wine rested in a gleaming bowl of now mostly melted ice, brought all the way from the spine of the world packed in chests of sawdust. Ice in the sun to chill a High Lord's drink.
Oh, nothing helps my back once it starts hurting.
A cool drink before bed.
I've thrown my back out before, and yeah, that sucked.
With wine and water and spices. Elaine lifted her head as Egwene took a seat.
And that sucked a lot.
Did you mean what you said, Egwene? About Rand? Egwene nodded, and Elaine sighed. Do you remember what Min used to say? All her jokes about sharing him? I sometimes wondered if that was a viewing she did not tell us about. I thought
I would imagine so, outsider. Having lock up, that'd be a whole different story there.
thought she meant we both loved him and she knew it. But you had the right to him and I didn't know what to do. I still don't. Egwene, he loves you. He will just have to be put straight, Egwene said firmly. When I marry, it will be because I want to, not just because a man expects me to love him. I will be gentle with him, Elaine, but before I am done, he will know he is free, whether he wants to be or not. My mother says men are different from us. She says we want to be in love, but only with the one we want. A man needs to be in love, but he will love the first woman to tie a string to his heart. That is all.
I helped my friend out with
Elaine
his
said in a tight voice.
changing
But
something
Elaine
with
was
his
in
brakes
chambers. Egwene sniffed.
or the breaker
Whatever
fluid,
she intends,
that little part of
Elaine
it.
won't keep her mind on
Then
one
we went
man
up to
long enough
his
to make him love her. 2 days ago, she was casting eyes at Ruar.
we did a little bit running
She
around,
was
ended up in his
smiling at
his
someone
other
else.
property.
She's like Elsa Grinwell. You remember her? The novice who spent all her time out at the practice yards fluttering
So it
her
wasn't too
eyelashes
bad
at the
today.
warders. She was not just fluttering her eyelashes in his bedchamber at this hour. She was wearing even less than usual, if that is possible. Do you mean to let her have him, then? No. Elaine said it very fiercely, and she meant it. But in the next
No
breath,
shit,
she was
hell
full
yeah.
of despair. Oh, Egwene, I do not know what to do.
Although cleaning also sucks too, so
What will Mother say?
and that definitely do a number on your back.
Sell than listen to the lectures Mother will give me. Andoran nobles, even in royal families, married commoners often enough that it hardly occasioned comment, in Andor at least. But Rand was not exactly the usual run of commoner. Her mother was quite capable of actually sending Linny to drag her home by her ear. Morgaze can hardly say much if Matt is to be believed, Egwene said comfortingly. Or even half believed. This Lord Gabriel,
I figured that, Southsider.
hardly sounds the choice of a woman thinking with her head. I'm sure Matt exaggerated, Elaine replied primly. Her mother was too shrewd to make herself a fool over any man. If Lord Gabriel, she had never even heard of him.
It really be hard to back when you gotta move them things to clean underneath them and around them.
She would give him a rude awakening. Nynaeve brought 3 goblets of spiced wine to the table, beads of condensation running down their shining sides, and small green
hell yes, Southsider.
straw mats to put them on.
That means you did. That means that was a lot of work.
Polish. So, she said, taking a chair, you've discovered you are in love with Rand Elaine, and Egwene has discovered she isn't. The 2 younger women gaped at her, one dark, the other fair, yet a near mirror image of astonishment. I have eyes, Nynaeve said complacently, and ears when you don't take the trouble to whisper. She sipped at her wine, and her voice grew cold when she continued. What do you mean to do about it? If that chit Berylane has her claws into him, it will not be easy to pry them loose. Are you sure you want to go to the effort? You know what he is. You know what lies ahead of him. Even setting
if everyone's smoking on it, we're smoking on anything.
Death. How long does he have? A year? 2? Or will it be before summer's end? He is a man who can channel.
Some macaroni and cheese and
tones of iron.
or some mac and cheese and
remember what he is.
A chicken patty made into a sandwich.
Held her head high and met Nynaeve stare for stare. It does not matter. Perhaps it should, but it doesn't. Perhaps I am being foolish. I do not care. I cannot change my heart to order, Nynaeve. Suddenly, Nynaeve smiled. I had to be sure, she said warmly. You must be sure. It isn't easy loving any man, but loving this man will be harder yet. Her smile faded as she went on. My first question still has to be answered. What do you mean to do about it? Berylane may look soft. She certainly makes men see her so, but I do not think she is. She will fight for what she wants. And she's the kind to hold hard to something she doesn't particularly want, just because someone else does want it. I would like to stuff her in a barrel, Egwene said, gripping her goblet as if it were the first's throat, and ship her back to Mayene, in the bottom of the hold. Nynaeve's braids swung as she shook her head. All very well, but try to offer advice that helps. If you cannot, keep silent and let her decide what she must do. Egwene stared at her, and she added, Rand is Elaine's to deal with now, not yours. You have stepped aside, remember? The remark
Yeah, shit.
sure
Hell
made
yeah,
Elaine
Southside.
smile, but it did not.
You be safe out
This
there.
isn't supposed to be different, she sighed. Different, she sighed. I thought I would meet a man, learn to know him over months or years, and slowly work until I realized I loved him. That is the way I hardly know, man. I've talked with him no more than half a dozen times in the space of a year. But I knew I loved him 5 minutes after I first set eyes on him. Now that was foolish. Only, it was true, and she did not care if it was foolish. She would tell her mother the same to her face, and Linny. Well, perhaps not Linny. Linny had plastic ways of dealing with foolishness, and she seemed to think Elaine had not aged beyond 10. As matters stand, though, I don't even have the right to be angry with him, or Elaine, but she was. I would like to slap his face till his ears ring for a year. I'd like to switch her all the way to the ship that takes her back to Mayene. Only she did not have the right, and that made it all the worse. Infuriatingly, a plaintive tone touched her voice. What can I do? He has never looked at me twice. In the Two Rivers, Egwene said slowly, if a woman wants a man to know she is interested in him, she puts flowers in his hair at bell time or Sunday, or she might embroider a feast day
Shit,
shirt
everything's high nowadays.
or make a point of asking him to dance and no one else. Elaine gave her an incredulous look, and she hastened to add, I'm not suggesting you embroider a shirt, but there are ways to let him know how you feel. Maeners believe in speaking out. Elaine's voice held a brittle edge. Perhaps that is the best way. Just tell him.
I didn't vote for no one. I'm not allowed to.
Know how I feel, then. At least I'll have some right to. She snatched her spiced wine and tilted her head back, drinking. Speak out? Like some Maiener hussy? Setting the empty goblet back on the small mat, she drew a deep breath and murmured, What will Mother say? What's more important, Nynaeve said gently, is what you will do when we have to leave here. Whether it's Tanchico or the Tower or somewhere else, we will have to go. What will you do when you've just told him you love him and you must leave him behind? If he asks you to stay with him, if you want to, I will go. There was no hesitation in Elaine's reply, but a touch of asperity. The other woman should not have had to ask. If I must accept him being the Dragon Reborn, he must accept that I am what I am, that I have duties. I want to be Aes Sedai, Nynaeve. It isn't some idle amusement. Neither is the work we have to do. Could you really think I would abandon you and Egwene? Egwene hurried to assure her that the thought had never crossed her mind. Nynaeve did the same, but slowly enough to give herself the lie. Elaine looked from one to the other of them. In truth, I feared you might tell me I was foolish, fretting over a thing like this when we have the Black Ajah to worry about. A slight flicker of Egwene's eyes said the thought had occurred to her, but Nynaeve said, Rand is not the only one who might die next year or next month. We might too. Times are not what they were, and we cannot be either. If you sit and wish for what you want, you may not see it this side of the grave. It was a chilling sort of reassurance, but Elaine nodded. She was not being silly. If only the Black Ajah could be settled so easily.
Hey, Soy, how you doing?
She pressed
Yeah, it's
the
cold
silver
red.
goblet to her forehead for the coolness. What were they to do? Chapter 7. Playing with Fire. With the sun barely above the horizon the next morning, Egwene presented herself at the doors to Rand's chambers, followed by a foot-dragging Elaine. The daughter heir wore a long-sleeved dress of pale blue silk, cut in the Tyran fashion and pulled low after some discussion. A necklace of sapphires like a deep morning sky, and another strand woven into her red-gold curls showed up the blue of her eyes. Despite the damp warmth, Egwene wore a plain, deep red scarf, as large as a shawl around her shoulders. Avienda had supplied the scarf and the sapphires, too. Surprisingly, the Aiel woman had a tidy store of such things somehow. For all she had known they were there, Egwene gave a start when the Aiel guards glided to their feet with startling suddenness. Elaine let out a small gasp, but quickly eyed them with that regal bearing she managed so well. It seemed to have no effect on these sun-dark men. The six
What the
were
hell?
Shayeen Matal, stone dogs, and appeared relaxed for Aiel, meaning they seemed to be looking everywhere, seemed ready to move in any direction.
Man, that fucking
Egwene
sign,
drew
what the
herself
fuck?
up in imitation of Elaine. She did wish she seemed ready to move in any direction.
Man, that fucking
Egwene
sign,
drew
what the
herself
fuck?
up in do that as well as the daughter heir, and announced, we want to see how the Lord Dragon's wounds are. Her remark was plainly foolish, if they knew much about healing, but that likelihood was
No,
small.
I don't speak
Few
Spanish.
people did, and Aiel probably less than most. She had not intended to give any reason for being there. It was enough that they thought her Aes Sedai. But when the Aiel appeared almost to spring out of the black marble floor, it suddenly seemed a good idea. Not that they were making any move to stop Elaine and her, of course, but these men were all so tall, so stone-faced, and they carried those short spears and horn bows as if using them would be as natural as breathing.
I refuse to learn.
With those light-colored eyes regarding her so intently, it was all too easy to remember stories of black-veiled Aiel without mercy or pity, of the Aiel War, and the men like these who had destroyed every army sent against them until the last, who had only turned back to the waste after fighting the allied nations to a standstill during 3 blood-soaked days and nights before Tar Valon itself. She very nearly
I
embraced the
technically
sight.
didn't want to learn.
Gaul, the Stone Dog's leader, nodded, looking down at Elaine and her with a touch of respect. He was a handsome man, in a rugged way, a little older than Nynaeve, with eyes as green and clear as polished gems, and long eyelashes so dark they seemed to outline his eyes in black. They may be troubling him. He's in
Yeah,
foul blood
sometimes.
this morning. Gaul grinned, just a quick flash of white teeth, in understanding of a temper when wounded. He has chased off a group of these high lords
All right,
already
most
and
hated.
shot one of them out himself. What was his name? Torian. Another even taller man replied. He had an arrow nocked, the short curved bow held almost casually. His gray eyes rested on the two women for an instant, then went back to searching among the anteroom's columns. Torian, Gaul agreed. I thought he would slide as far as those pretty carvings. He pointed a spear to the ring of stiff-standing defenders, but he came short by 3 paces. I lost a good tyrant hanging, all hawks in gold thread to Mangin. The taller man gave a brief, contented smile. Egwene blinked at the image of Rand physically pitching a high lord across the floor. He had never been violent, far from it. How much had he changed? She had been too busy with Joya and Amiko, and he too busy with Moiraine or Lan or the High Lords.
I'll be right back,
More than
everyone.
speak in passing. A few words about home here and there, about how the Beltane Festival might have gone this year, and what Sunday would be like. It had all been so brief. How much had he changed? We have to see him, Elaine said, a slight tremor in her voice. Gaul made a bow, grounding the point of one spear on the black marble. Of course, Aes Sedai. It was with some trepidation that Egwene entered Rand's chambers, and Elaine's face spoke volumes of the effort those few steps took. No evidence of last night's horror remained, unless it was the absence of mirrors. Lighter patches marked the wall panels where those hanging there had been taken away. Not that the room came anywhere near neatness. Books lay everywhere, on everything, some lying open as if abandoned in the middle of a page, and the bed was still unmade. The crimson draperies were pulled open on all the windows, facing westward toward the river that was Tyr's heart vein, and Kalandor sparkled like polished crystal, on a huge gilded stand of surprising gaudiness. Egwene thought the stand the ugliest thing she had ever seen decorating a room, until she glimpsed the silver wolves savaging a golden stag on the mantel above the fireplace. Scant breezes off the river kept the room surprisingly cool compared to the rest of the stone. Rand sat in his shirt sleeves, sprawled in a chair with one leg over the arm and a leather-bound book propped against his knee. At the sound of their footsteps, he snapped the book shut and dropped it among the others on the scroll-worked carpet, bounding to his feet, ready to fight. The scowl on his face faded as he took in who they were. For the first time in the stone, Egwene looked for changes in him and found them. How many months before then since she had seen him last? Enough for his face to have grown harder, for the openness that had once been there to fade. He moved differently, too, a little like Lan, a little like the Aiel, with his height and his reddish hair, and eyes that seemed now blue, now gray as the light took them. He looked all too much like an Aiel man, too much for comfort. But had he changed inside? "I thought you were someone else," he mumbled, sharing out embarrassed glances between them. That was the Rand she knew, even to the flush that rose in his cheeks every time he looked at her or Elaine, either one. "Some people want things I can't give, things I will not give." Suspicion grew on his face with shocking suddenness, and his tone hardened. "What do you want? Did Moiraine send you? Are you supposed to convince me to do what she wants?" "Don't be a goose," Egwene said sharply before she thought. "I do not want you to start a war." Elaine added in pleading tones, "We came to help you, if we can." That was one of their reasons, and the easiest to bring up, they had decided over breakfast. "You know about her plans for—" he began roughly, then made a sudden shift. "Help me? How? That is what Moiraine says." Egwene sternly folded her arms beneath her breasts, holding the scarf tight, in the way Nynaeve used to address the village council when she meant to have her way no matter how stubborn they were. It was too late to start over. The only thing was to go on as she had begun. "I told you not to be a fool, Rand al'Thor. You may have tyrants bowing to your boots, but I remember when Nynaeve switched your bottom for letting Matt talk you into stealing a jar of apple brandy." Elaine kept her face carefully composed. Too carefully. It was plain to Egwene that she wanted to laugh out loud. Rand did not notice, of course. Men never did. He grinned at Egwene, close to laughing himself. "We had just turned 13. She found us asleep behind your father's stable, and our heads hurt so much we didn't even feel her switch." That was not at all the way Egwene recalled it. "Not like when you threw that bowl at her head. Remember? She dosed you with dogwood tea because you'd been moping about for a week, and as soon as you tasted it, you hit her with her best bowl. Light, did you squeal? When was that? 2 years ago, come this—" "We are not here to talk over old times," Egwene said, shifting the scarf irritably. It was thin wool, but still far too hot. Really, he did have the habit of remembering the most unfortunate things. He grinned as if he knew what she was thinking, and went on in better humor. "You are here to help me, you say. With what? I don't suppose you know how to make a High Lord keep his word when I'm not staring over his shoulder. Or how to stop unwanted dreams. I could surely use help with—" Eyes darting to Elaine and back to her, he made another abrupt shift. "What about the old tongue? Did you learn any of that in the White Tower?" Without waiting for an answer, he began rooting through the volumes scattered across the carpet. There were more on the chairs, among the tumbled bedclothes. "I have a copy here, somewhere, of—" "Rand!" Egwene raised her voice. "Rand! I cannot read the old tongue." She shot a look at Elaine, warning her not to admit to any such knowledge. They had not come to translate the prophecies of the dragon for him. The sapphires in the daughter heir's hair swayed as she nodded agreement. "We had other things to learn." He straightened from the books with a sigh. It was too much to hope. For a moment he seemed on the point of saying more, but stared at his boots. Egwene wondered how he managed to deal with the High Lords in all their arrogance, if she and Elaine put him so out of countenance. "We came to help you with channeling," she told him. "With the power." What Moiraine claimed was supposed to be true. A woman could not teach a man to channel any more than she could teach him how to bear a child. Egwene was not so sure. She had felt something woven from saidin once, or rather, she had felt nothing, something blocking her own flows as surely as stone-dammed water. But she had learned as much outside the tower as within. Surely in her knowledge there was something she could teach him, some guidance she could offer. "If we can," Elaine added. Suspicion flashed across his face again. It was unnerving how his mood changed so quickly. "I have more chance of reading the old tongue than you do of..." "Are you sure this isn't Moiraine's doing? Did she send you here? Thinks she can convince me by some roundabout way, does she? Some twisty Aes Sedai plot I'll not see the point of until I am mired in it?" He grunted sourly and pulled a dark green coat from the floor behind one of the chairs, shrugging into it hastily. "I agreed to meet some more of the High Lords this morning. If I don't keep an eye on them, they just find ways to get around what I want. They'll learn sooner or later. I rule Tyr now. Me, the Dragon Reborn. I will teach them. You will have to excuse me." Egwene wanted to shake him. He ruled Tyr? Well, perhaps he did if it came to that, but she remembered a boy with a lamb nestled inside his coat, proud as a rooster because he had driven off the wolf that tried to take it. He was a shepherd, not a king, and even if he had called to give himself airs, it was no good to him that he did. She was about to tell him as much, but before she could, Elaine spoke up fiercely. "No one sent us. No one. We came because we care for you."
Why'd that book stop? Hey, Ouija Buds, how you doing?
Tell him as much, but before she could, Elaine spoke up fiercely. "No one sent us. No one. We came because we care for you. Perhaps it will not work, but you can try. If I
ain't scared.
Try, you can try too. Is it so unimportant to you that you cannot speak?"
Michigan's not too bad. I like it up here.
He stopped buttoning up his coat, staring at the daughter heir so intently that for a moment
definitely a lot more chilly. I actually have one of these down here.
"It'll do no good, but I will. What do you want me to do?" Egwene drew a deep breath. She had not thought convincing him would be this easy.
I know it's my buddy's wife got off work, so I went up there and said hi.
"Look at me," she said. completely as it ever had. More completely, accepting every drop she could hold. It was as if
Yeah, because the spare bedroom's in the basement, so
as if the light itself filled
all the running around the little one does, you can hear it up here because I'm directly below them.
It was a shock to realize she was not quivering. Surely
How you doing, Ouija buds? Did you hear what your little one did yesterday, Ouija?
To simply lie back and let it roll through her, over her. She made herself speak. What do you see? What do you feel? Look at me, Rand. He lifted his head slowly.
Way too cordial, huh?
I see you. What am I supposed to see? Are you touching the source? Egwene Moiraine has channeled around me 100
Yeah,
times, and I
she's
never
officially
saw
a pothead. She goes and steals most hated
even I know that
joint,
much.
eats it all, then
I am stronger than Moiraine, she told
starts
me.
feeling it
She
later
would
on
be
that day.
on the floor or insensible if she tried to hold as much as I hold now. It was true, though she had never before rated the Aes Sedai's ability so closely. It cried out to be used, this power pulsing through her stronger than heart blood. With this much, she could do things Moiraine could not do. The wound in Rand's side that Moiraine could never heal completely. She did not know healing. It was considerably more.
It was there for the smoking, huh? She's oh, that's mine. That's what it is. She thought most hated left it for her. That he wrote her own joint.
It was considerably more complex than anything she had ever done, but she had watched Nynaeve heal, and perhaps with this
She didn't feel like sharing it.
power filling her, she could see something of how that could be healed.
You didn't run everybody off.
Only to see.
It's usually like this.
Hair-fine flows of air and water and spirit, the powers used for healing, and felt for his old injury. One touch, and she recoiled, shivering, snatching.
The cool ones are still here.
Her stomach churned as if every meal she had ever eaten wanted to come up. It seemed that all the darkness in the world rested there in Rand's side. All the world's evil in a festering sore only lightly covered by tender scar tissue.
Right, she's Bella. She gets everything she wants, especially from most hated.
How could he bear the pain? Why was he not weeping? From first
Most hated.
action had taken only a moment. Shaken and desperately hiding it, she went on without a pause. You are as strong as I. I know it. You must be. Feel, Rand. What do you feel? Light. What can heal that? Can anything? I don't feel anything, he muttered, shifting his feet.
No one could time you out.
It's not that I don't trust you, Egwene, but I cannot help being nervous when a woman is channeling around me.
I think the only one that has that type of power is here's most hated.
Between channeling and merely embracing the true source, there was so much he did not know, even compared to her own skin.
He's one of my managing moderators.
Trying to work a loom by touch, with no idea of colors or what the threads or even the loom looked like. With an effort, she released Saidar, and it was an effort.
See, he's all me.
I am not touching the source. She stepped closer and peered up at him. Do you still feel goosebumps? No, but that's just because you told me. He gave it.
Don't back him up.
Shoulders. You see, I started thinking about it, and I have them again. Egwene smiled triumphantly. She did not need to look around at Elaine to confirm what she had.
I didn't do nothing.
What they had agreed upon earlier for this point. You can sense a woman embracing the source, Rand. Elaine is doing just that right now.
I don't think most hated knows how to settle down.
It doesn't matter what you see or don't see. You felt it. We have that much. Let's see what else we can find. Rand, embrace the source. Embrace Saidin. The words came out hoarsely. They had agreed on this too, she and Elaine. He was Rand, not a monster from the stories, and they had agreed on it. But still, asking a man to... The wonder was that she had gotten the words out at all. Do you see anything? She asked Elaine. Or feel anything? Rand still doled out glances between them, in between staring at the floor and sometimes blushing. Why was he so out of countenance? Studying him fixedly, the daughter heir shook her head. He could just be standing there for all I can tell. Are you sure he is doing anything? He can be stubborn, but he isn't foolish. At least he isn't foolish most of the time. Well, stubborn or foolish or something else, I feel nothing at all. Egwene frowned at him. You said you would do as we asked, Rand. Are you? If you felt something, so should I, and I do not. She broke off with a stifled yelp. Something had pinched her bottom. Rand's lips twitched, clearly fighting a grin. That, she told him crisply, was not nice. He tried to keep his face innocent, but the grin slipped. You said you wanted to feel something, and I just thought. His sudden roar made Egwene jump. Clapping a hand to his left buttock, he hobbled in a pained circle. Blood and ashes, Egwene! There was no need to. He fell off into deeper, inaudible mutters. Egwene was just as glad she did not understand.
See?
She took the opportunity to flap the scarf for a little air and shared a small
Nightbot
smile
showed up
with
late
Egwene.
as always.
The glow faded around the daughter heir. They both
I haven't got quite dialed in yet with the Nightbot.
That should show him.
He shows up here and there.
About 100 for one, Egwene estimated. Turning back to Rand, she put on her sternest face. I would have expected something
Get caught
like that
slacking.
from Matt. I thought you at least had grown up. We came here to help you if we can. Try to cooperate. Do something with the power. Something that
I think you could take most hated Ouija buds.
Sense that. Hunched, he glared at them. Do something, he muttered. You had no call to. I'll limp for. You want me to do something? Suddenly, she lifted into the air, and Elaine, too. They stared at each other wide-eyed as they floated a pace above the carpet. There was nothing holding them.
That's funny.
Nothing. Her mouth tightened. He had no right to do this. No right at all.
Yeah, I thought it'd be funny, most hated.
The same sort of shield of spirit that cut Joya off from the source
See?
would stop him, too.
I have to agree with most hated on that, Ouija buds.
She opened herself to Saidar, and her stomach sank.
He's got rear naked choke coming to him, huh?
Feel its warmth and light, but between her and the true source stood something, nothing, an absence that shut her away from the source like a stone wall. She felt hollow inside until panic welled up to fill her. A man was channeling and she was caught in it. He was Rand, of course, but dangling there like a basket, helpless, all she could think of was a man channeling and the taint on Saidin. She tried to shout
Any time now, huh?
all that came out was a croak. You want me to do something? Rand growled.
I think he got him scared, Ouija buds, because he hasn't said nothing yet.
The wood creaking and began to stumble about in a stiff parody of dance, gilt flaking off and falling. You like this? Fire flared up in the fireplace, filling the hearth from side to side, burning on stone bare of ashes. Or this. The tall stag and wolves above the fireplace began to soften and slump. Thin streams of gold and silver flowed out from the mass, finding
Oh, we won't use that word at all.
weaving themselves into a narrow sheet of metallic cloth. The length of glittering fabric hung in the air as it grew, its far end still.
Did you hear that, most hated?
Do something, Rand said. Do something. Do you have any idea what it is like to touch Saidin, to hold it? Do you? I can feel the madness waiting, seeping into me.
Ever.
The cake tables burst into flame like torches, dancing still. Books spun in the air, pages fluttering. The mattress on the bed erupted, showering feathers across the room like snow. Feathers falling onto the burning tables filled the room with their sharp, sooty stink. Rand stared wildly. Then, whatever was happening, Gwen and Elaine vanished. Their heels thumped. The flames went out as if sucked into wood that had been consumed.
Is she most hated?
And the books fell to the floor in a worse jumble than before. The length of gold and silver.
She said you're not allowed to say tickle type no more, most hated.
Metal, no or even hot. Only 3 largish lumps, 2 silver and 1 gold, remained on the mantel, cold and unrecognizable.
And he's probably laughing about it too, huh, Ouija buds?
They landed. They clutched each other for support, but Egwene felt the other woman doing exactly what she was doing, embracing Saidar as quickly as she could. In moments, she had a shield ready to throw around Rand if he even appeared to be channeling. Staring at the charred tables with feathers still drifting down around him, flecking his coat.
No cheese.
He did not seem to be a danger now, but the room was certainly a mess. She wove tiny flows of air to pull all the floating feathers together.
Not you, huh?
Already on the carpet as well. As an afterthought, she added those on his coat.
You're completely innocent, huh, Mutated?
Straighten or see to himself. Rand flinched as the feathers floated past him to alight on the tattered ruins of the mattress. It did nothing for the smell, burned feathers and burned wood, but at least the room was neater, and the open windows and faint
Oh, I know.
already lessening the stench. The Majira may not want to give me another, he said with a strained laugh. A mattress a day is probably more than she is willing to. He avoided looking at her or Elaine. I'm sorry. I did not mean. Sometimes it runs wild. Sometimes there's nothing there when I reach for it. And sometimes it does things I don't. I'm sorry. Perhaps you had better go. I seem to say that a lot. He blushed again and cleared his throat. I am not touching the source, but maybe you had best go. We are not done yet, Egwene said gently. More gently than she felt, she wanted to box his ears. The idea of picking her up like that, shielding her and Elaine. But he was on the ragged edge. Of what, she did not know, and she did not want to find out. Not now. Not here. With so many exclaiming over their strength, everyone said she and Elaine would be among the strongest Aes Sedai, if not the strongest, in 1,000 years or more. She had assumed they were as strong as he. Near to it, at least. She had just been rudely disabused. Perhaps Nynaeve could come close if she was angry enough, but Egwene knew she herself could never have done what he just had. Split her flows that many ways, worked that many things at once.
He's a bully.
Working 2 flows at once was far more than twice as hard as working 1 of the same magnitude, and working 3 much more than twice again working 2. He had to have been weaving a dozen. He did not even look tired, yet exertion with the power took energy. She very much feared he could handle her and Elaine both like kittens. Kittens he might decide to drown if he went mad. But she would not, could not, just walk away. That would be the same as quitting, and she was not made that way. She meant to do what she had come there for, all of it, and he was not going to chase her off short of it. Not him or anything else. Elaine's blue eyes were filled with determination, and the moment Egwene fell silent, she added in a much firmer voice, "And we will not go until we are. You said you would try. You must try." "I did say that, didn't I?" he murmured after a time.
Alright, I'm probably get off for right now and go up there and kick back with Cameron for a little bit. Probably get back on later on tonight. But I want to thank everyone for stopping by. Everyone keeps coming back. Appreciate all y'all support. Until next time, everyone, y'all stay safe out there.